A college student named Tree wakes up on her birthday in an unfamiliar dorm of a fellow co-ed named Carter. We follow Tree throughout the events of her day and discovered that she isn't exactly a nice person. She is rude to strangers and friends, has some sort of unresolved issues with her father, blows him off for a birthday luncheon, and she is participating in an affair with one of her professors, Dr. Gregory Butler. At the end of her day, she is attacked and killed by an unknown masked murderer. After being stabbed to death, she wakes back up in Carter's dorm, and her day repeats. She is stuck in this vicious cycle, each day repeating her own death. Tree must find out who is killing her and prevent her own murder in order to escape this vicious cycle. Spoilers ahead for Happy Death Day? You have been warned. Welcome back to Autopsy of a Horror Movie. My name is Brucker, and today I am joined by Dustin of the fun podcast, Dustin Can Read. Thank you so much, Dustin, for coming back on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Brucker.
If people are new to the show or missed the episode, Dustin was on the very popular Scream Special Topics episode in which Dustin, myself, and Adam of the Great American Scream talked about the opening scene to every Scream movie, and that was so much fun. And I'm very happy for you to return back to the show to talk about Happy Death Day from 2017.
Yes, I'm really happy to come back too. I love talking movies. I love talking pop culture and whatnot in general. So, and to have somebody like you who loves it just as much, it's fun. It's a good time.
Yes, and before we get any further, I want to thank listener Chelley for requesting this movie, actually, during my little hiatus, and I said I was taking movie requests. Chelley messaged me on Instagram and said that she would really like to hear me discuss Happy Death Day, and which was actually really funny because Dustin and I were already talking about covering this movie together at some point before Chelley even requested it. And then once that request came in, I said, all right, we really got to get the wheels moving on this. So thank you, Chelley. And she could be found on Instagram hosting a really fun book club called Point Horror Book Club. Links will be in the show notes. So thank you, Chelley.
Yes, thank you, Chelley. Chelley's a great friend, and she's just all around good person, fun person to talk to, and I love that she reached out to you for this, and even though we were already kind of planning it, so it was pretty cool.
So Happy Death Day from 2017. This movie was directed by Christopher Landon, who did Freaky previous episode, and this was written by Scott Lobdell, mostly known for writing the 1990s X-Men Marvel cartoon series, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, that is really cool.
It is. So I kind of like that transition of, really fun comic book cartoon show to this, which still has some like fantasy, sci-fi kind of like elements in it.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, like if you even look at like the New Mutants or X-Men in general, there's a lot of horror elements in there anyway. So that kind of makes sense, the transition over,
I know that this was my first time seeing this movie, and I'm going to get into why it took me so long to actually see this. But was this your first time seeing Happy Death Day?
Yes, definitely. It was the very first time I saw it. I've been kind of wanting to see it because it did look like a fun time via the trailers. It's the only way I'd never heard anybody talk about it. And personally, I mean, of course I've seen stuff online, but I just, I never really heard anything about it. So I kind of put it in the back of my mind, even though it looked like it was good. And I mean, it warranted a sequel. So, it ought to be somewhat good, right? So
right.
I just haven't had the chance to watch it until recently.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about this. Like I've always heard people mention that they really liked it, which I was kind of surprised that this was so well received before seeing it. After seeing it, I liked this movie a lot, and I thought it was so much fun. But I was kind of like, really, that movie? Just because the trailers didn't exactly grab me per se, just because I was kind of lost on what the tone was, I think.
I can see that. It's kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like, almost felt like bubblegum horror in the trailer, if that makes sense. Like, it was just like, here you go, here's something really easy to take, but it's fun, And that's another way it kind of appealed to me, because as you know, I am not the biggest horror enthusiast. I get really, anxious and whatnot, especially really intense moments or really, really, jump scare heavy things. And this seemed like a, something that I could be spoon fed a little bit, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I think my biggest hesitation going into it was the mask, the baby face mask. To be honest, I still think it's kind of goofy and doesn't really entice fear in me, which was kind of why it's a shallow reason, but it was why I kind of put this movie off for so long, just because like, oh, that kind of looks a little goofy and kind of stupid. But going, watching the movie and everything, it's kind of hilarious that babies are the mascot for this college.
I know. I was like, is their mascot the Bayfield Babies? Like, are they the cherubs? What are they? What is this? Like, they weren't cherubs because there weren't like wings or anything on the little cartoon babies, that were drawn. So what kind of college is this?
Yeah, just a bunch of drunk babies. Like, I don't know what it was trying to do.
It's a very surreal college campus.
Yeah,
or just the mascot's like, okay, you're babies. Okay.
And that's the thing, like everything else seems normal for like a college campus, a university. It's like just this mascot that just seems off. And also, I don't think Christopher Landon is much of a sports person. Just also watching his commentary with Freaky, I think he mentioned that they had he didn't know anything about like football or sports or anything like that. And so I find it hilarious that they had like these masks for like the sports teams, because that's just not really a thing sports teams do, or like, people wearing masks. People do like,
yeah, they would have like
face paint,
foam fingers,
yeah,
or flags, or like grease paint, or maybe a hat or something like that. But it's never usually something that fully covers your face.
Yes. And so I mean, that's not like a knock against this movie. This movie is fabulous, and I really don't have everything I have for it are just like super nitpicky things, but like it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of it. It's just kind of more comical. It's like that sports fans don't wear masks like that.
Right. And it kind of puts you more in that fantasy element of the movie in a way, like this like is not the real world.
Yeah.
There's something off about this movie because look at this. This is not how this happens.
So my opinions coming out of this movie was that it was super fun, kind of like, it's like kind of lighthearted in a sense, but like it's also serious at times too. It was really interesting kind of trying to put together what sort of subgenres or just different genres in general that this movie pulls from, and
right.
what it's kind of blending into. I kind of wrote down, this feels like a rom-com cross with a slasher movie.
Yeah, it's less. I want to say, I would agree with that, because rom-coms aren't like hilariously funny. You know what I mean? Like there's some funny elements in there, or just some situational type things that happen. And it's definitely not a slapstick movie, where it's like constantly laugh after laugh. But there's some definite funny elements in there. That's why I was kind of like, this is a horror comedy, but it's not really funny, but it's not really scary either. So it's kind of like, yeah, I would get that. I would get that rom-com type thing. That would totally, that fits that structure totally.
And I think it's also playing, or something that is also playing into that, this is a PG-13 rating.
Yes.
So I feel like that kind of like keeps it in like this tamed kind of rom-com-y sort of feel, not in preventing it from going full-blown like, gross out R-rated comedy horror like American Pie or something like that.
Right. And if they did that, it would probably have to be, if they still wanted to be a horror comedy, they would have to be like over the top kills, like the big fight scene in Kill Bill where like blood is just spewing out of like, orifices and just completely just all over the place, like over the top. That would make it funny and easier to deal with. Kind of like, also like Scream Queens, the TV series. I don't know if you ever saw that. The very first season of that, there was a lot of like over the top deaths. It's hilarious. You should at least the first season. The second season, nah, but watch the first season, and it's totally got the sorority slasher comedy thing, and that's another. I just thought about this. So in the Scream Queen series, they have a mascot called the Red Devil, who has a full blown mask.
Oh,
and so they ended up like the bad guy wears the devil mask and kills people, or the sorority girls, and that. So you should definitely watch it. I will tell you this. Freaking Ariana Grande, comic genius. I don't know if you've ever seen her on Victorious. She was funny on that, but this one she's hilarious in. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes of it, and when I saw I liked, I don't know. I'm terrible with TV shows and keeping up with them, as you and I have talked about before. But yeah, something else I was kind of, or another sort of subgenre feel I was getting from this, is that this really felt like a and obviously it's a mystery, but it was also kind of like this is like a subtle whodunit as well.
Oh yeah, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of feels like a throwback to when Scream first came out a little bit.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you that. It doesn't have as much adrenaline in it, and it's not like a constant thing, constantly going. But there was constantly people dying in Scream throughout the movie. In this one, it's kind, it's rebooting, it's starting over, and you're seeing the day start over, staying, over and over and over. But it has that whodunit aspect of where she goes through and she's trying to figure out and cross people off her list of who is doing this to me, who is trying to kill me over and over, and that's where that element comes in, where you're kind of like, you as the audience are laughing, but you're kind of trying to figure it out, and I think I figured it out like early on. I won't get
Oh,
into
really?
that, but I did. I figured it out, and it was one little element that got me. I'm like, I know who it is. Um, but yeah, it was really fun to watch this whodunit element. And you know what? Another genre it kind of goes into as well. I want to call it redemption horror.
Oh, okay. So not revenge horror, but redemption horror.
Yeah, because she is just a snobby, self-absorbed bitch at the beginning of this, and then as it goes on, she's learning how much of a crappy person she's been, and
Mm-hmm.
and she's trying to learn how to be a good person. And she thinks basically that's how she's going to get out of this, and that's not what it is. But I thought that was really neat. And it's not like it's different from Groundhog Day. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
it's different because in Groundhog Day, that's what it was. He had to redeem himself to
Mm-hmm.
stop the thing over and over. In this one, you thought that's what you had to do, and that's not what it was. She's getting killed for a reason, and but it still had that redemption arc to it. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that redemption horror. I don't know.
I like that. I like that idea of redemption horror. I think that's a super cool idea. I'm trying to think of like I can't really think of other movies off the top of my head right now that will play into that, but I love that idea of centering around our protagonist, or in this, like our final girl here, which I definitely want to get into if you think that she qualifies as a final girl. I have my reasonings why, but I want to kind of pin that for a second. Um, I really like that idea a lot because that I love the idea of centering around our protagonist and that like making their like using their fears to play into their arc for like kind of like self-healing
Yeah.
as well in this, and I definitely want to get into that when we get into our fear analysis. So my question is kind of fruitless because I think that she does qualify as a final girl, but I was going to kind of ask you about that. Do you think Tree? Because I've heard people say that Tree is some of their favorite like modern, one of their favorite modern final girls. I have like a specific definition for a final girl, but I'm just curious for you. Like, do you kind of see that as her being a final girl, or seeing why people would gravitate towards her and her being like a popular modern one?
Yeah, I definitely do. Because, well, she's a millennial, or at least, or I guess Gen Z at the same time. She's kind of in between, 'cause the era it came out.
Who knows?
But she's got that attitude about her, so that she's this generation's final girl. That's what they define a final girl as. Somebody who just stands up and does it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the traditional final girl is usually the meek girl, the one who's looked over, the one who's left for last. The killer doesn't even think of her really until the end.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh
then
yeah,
she's
that's a
got
good
it.
point. She's the main target. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the main target, and she's the one who stands up to the killer and wins, and or usually that's usually the case. And
Mm-hmm.
for this, and it kind of goes along with that redemption horror thing in a way, because the final girl traditionally is, like I said, this meek kind of, wimpy type character who finally, in a way, redeems herself and stands up to the killer. In this, she's kind of that same way. She's not wimpy. She's, vapid in a
Mm-hmm.
way, but she redeems herself, standing up to her. She's playing that final girl role, or at least the girl that falls down when being chased by the killer. The one who does all the wrong things, and finally she redeems herself and stands up to the guy. And plans it
Right.
out. And gets all military and whatnot, which is cool.
I do love that transition to being like this kind of she kind of like the movie starts out with her kind of being like a stock like sorority girl character. I feel like, and we kind of already talked about how she has a lot of personal issues and demons that she has to deal with, and then towards the end she kind of turns into, I feel like, a final girl that we people, at least have been watching slashers from like the 80s and 90s, something we're a little bit more familiar with, like someone who's a little bit more tactile, kind of like a Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street, or it's also kind of getting some like very, very, very mild, like Laurie Strode from Halloween 2018, especially like when
Yeah.
she gets her get up in her ponytail or goes like full commando spying on people.
Yeah, it's like she's accepted that I'm in a horror movie and I've got to do this. I'm the final girl and this is how it's going to go down. You know, that's kind of like how she's
Yeah,
accepted
she
that.
starts to become proactive.
And it's kind of like that self-aware thing, you know, in a way. It's in the movie, she becomes self-aware that she's almost in a movie. She's repeating the same thing over and over. She's got to figure this out. Even at that one point where she's like, oh crap, he died. I can't kill the bad guy now, or, you know, he's not gonna come back, so I gotta die again. You know, she's become self-aware. She's in a movie. I think she almost realizes that it's a movie, you know, and without saying it in so many words.
Why I kind of started this conversation is because I have a very specific kind of definition for a final girl, and it's not so much like characteristics, because they could be all sorts of different, you know, types and characteristics and personalities. My specific definition is that I feel like a final girl is something unique to the slasher subgenre specifically, and it's normally them. They were once part of a group of people that have been killed off, and now has been left to her. But in this, it is part slasher, but she's the only target. So I feel like it's kind of in a very technical, anal sense, in my definition, she isn't exactly a final girl, just more of a leading role, just like, you know, leading woman in this slasher movie.
Yeah.
Not necessarily final girl, but in a meta sense, I think she is a final girl because the final version that we get of Tree at the end is the final girl, because she has to go through so many different versions of herself through the movie that get killed off. Now it leads down to the one that is most capable and built towards the end of the movie that can survive it now. So in my own weird meta anal sense, yes, now that is how I fit her as a final girl in this movie, and how it kind of redefined it for me.
Okay, well, devil's advocate to that, in saying that, you know, usually the final girl is not the only target, but if you think about it, Sidney Prescott was the main target, and everybody else was just collateral damage to get to her. And then she also does that same thing where she's meek and everything, and at the end, she finally goes, you know what, I'm done with this, and turns it around on them. Which is,
I guess I'll say, just like the group that she was surrounded by were being picked off as well. So it was kind of like, because it was still part of Billy and Stu's plan to make it frame her dad for everything. But yeah, so I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of
have
circumstantial in that way. Like, you know, it's like, well, it's similar kind of setup. You know, I mean, it's mainly her. She's the one being worried, and she's the one who should be worried. But, you know, anybody around her might need to be worried too. You know, even though she's the only one who's aware of what's going on, because she has to wake up every day with that same memory, but no one else does. And so she has to be afraid for them as well. It's just like, you know, when Carter gets killed at one point, like I said.
Yeah.
You know, and she's like, he's collateral damage. He wasn't a main target, but the killer went after him, you know, so.
Can we also just talk about for a second how Carter was a really likable character in this as well? I really liked Carter in this. He wasn't in it so much, but he was. I feel like that he was like a really good, you know, like counterpart to Tree.
Well, he was totally the rom-com, you know, guy. You know, and that's another thing, rom-com. So rom-coms have final girls. Think about it. They have final girls.
Okay, explain this to me.
The main character is the redemption story, like I was saying, is usually, a lot of times in rom-coms, it's usually a meek girl, you know, quiet, wants the guy, can't get the guy, finally kind of gets somebody, something happens, and at the end she's got to come and rise to the occasion and finally get her, you know, her say in her own life and find her autonomy. And, you know, all that same stuff happens in slasher flicks like that. It might not be about getting a guy, but surviving, but still at the same time, you know, you have to rise to the occasion and change your story, your narrative to make it fit you and what you want, you know? So it's kind of the way rom-coms have final girls too.
I've never thought about it that way.
They might not be called final girls. I mean, but I wouldn't call them, you know, they're not everybody else is dead unless it's a very different rom-com.
Yeah. No, I like that, and it's still playing into that thing that you were talking about, how redemption is a big part of these types of stories.
Yeah, exactly. You're just it's a metamorphosis in a way. You know, you're changing yourself. You're making it your story and not the killer's, or, you know, if you think about it. I don't know. Getting a little too philosophical with it, I guess.
let's talk about the types of fear that this movie really plays off of. I definitely feel like that there is that obvious one of kind of just being stuck in a rut, kind of, or kind of like literally. I feel like this kind of goes into two different avenues. It's also kind of like literally feeling like your life is so boring, or kind of just like doing the same thing over and over, and that there's kind of nothing that you can do about it. Like you're having trouble seeing past something. Like you feel like, oh, I'll never get that job, or I'll never get to whatever sort of state that you want to be at, and you kind of just feel stuck in this cycle. I was kind of feeling that a little bit, my own little personal issues I'm going with. I always feel like I'm never going to graduate, but this movie was like really kind of tapping into things like that.
It's kind of like that thing like for those of us in the 80s, from 80s kids, we were always scared of quicksand. They put quicksand in like everything back in the 80s, like, so you had or mud, if you think about the Never Ending Story and the horse drowning, stuff like that. You would see quicksand in cartoons, you'd see quicksand on TV shows and stuff, and so kids got afraid of quicksand. And it's more about like being trapped and you can't move and you're slowly drowning.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's almost like a physical representation of that. I am being drowned mentally. And there's no way I can get out of it. Suffocation in a way.
Yes.
And the mundane, and it's just, no one wants that. No one wants something just blah every day. I mean, that's not life. That's not living.
Right. Yeah. And I kind of felt like that this, this being stuck in this cycle was definitely kind of like a fear of going into you feeling like you have no autonomy, or like no control. Because I feel like I really love that they add that little consequence of Tree, that like whenever she dies and wakes back up, she still has like the physical trauma of what previously happened to her. Like
she has scar tissues and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So I really like that. That's a really good like kind of like metaphor of how, like, if you don't take the time to kind of like self-reflect and like figure out why you're stuck in this rut, you're just going to keep building up whatever sort of trauma.
And making it worse.
Yes, exactly. So I really love that nice kind of like metaphor for that in this.
And yeah, it also has this kind of isolation fear in it too. She's the only one reliving this day over and over. She's the only one, and she has to keep explaining it over and over, and then have to figure it out. Basically, it's up to her. She has to figure this out, and it's all on her. And it's that just me, and that's fearful as well. Like if it's only you, it's kind of like that. At one point, I was afraid she was going to get thrown into a mental institution, but that's kind of like in that sense as well. You're the only one who sees the truth, being all alone, and then no one else sees it. And that scares me too.
Yes,
seeing the truth and no one else sees it. It's kind of like it's almost like Nazi regime type of thing going on, and you're like, no, this is bad, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess a sense of like you have this like shame and worthlessness. It's not really... like I said, the isolation, it kind of makes, am I up to this task? You know what I mean? Like, am I, she's like, why does this keep happening to me? And she doesn't really, until she does that redemption, she just kind of, she falls into that fear of like being the victim. Why me? Instead of, all right, I'm done with the why me. And now we're just going to stop this because this has gotten out of hand, And that's a lot of mental struggles as well. You end up in that cycle of blaming everybody else and not taking responsibility for how you feel, and working on it. And you're blaming all these external forces when actually it's all in your head, it's all there for you. You've got to take care of it. So it's kind of balances that out in that way, I think.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up, because I had a very similar note in this as well. Is that I felt like this was definitely, the fear of like humiliation or shame, because Tree obviously has a lot of issues, and she's not proud of the person that that she has become today. And she talks about that with Carter, her dad, and like her birthday is very hard for her because her mother, who is deceased, they shared a birthday together, and so she always kind of thinks about how her mom would not be proud of the type of person that she's become today, but she doesn't really take the time to sit down and think and like reflect on that and think about what can I do to make myself feel worth and respect myself more. This cycle she's trapped in is kind of forcing her to do that a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And it's like that one time she goes around and she tells everybody, and she's really nice to people, and she goes, she goes and sees her dad finally. You know, she's been avoiding it for most of the movie, and she finally goes to see him and talks to him and everything. And that's what made me so frustrated when that day started over again. I was like, you didn't
Right?
even have those conversations. Ah! But it was more about her. I get it. But at the same time, it kind of makes me mad. Like, now the dad never knows how she opened up, and, you know. But I'm sure she did it again. But
Yeah.
it was
Oh yeah,
frustrating.
yeah,
That was
definitely.
frustrating. That's also a
It
thing, you
was.
know. You know, that whole like, I'm opening up, but then I have to start over again and keep doing it over again, which is also another mental health thing. You know, you have to
That's a
keep
really good
starting
point.
over and over again. Every day is a new day. Because tomorrow I'm gonna feel like crap when I wake up, but I got to start over again, and I got to start and make my day better. You know, and it's hard, and I've got to try. You hit to do it every day. It's a big mental health kind of metaphor if you think about it in this movie.
That is an excellent point. Yeah, it is definitely a kind everything you just said, a metaphor for mental health and how every day you got to work yourself up to that point.
Because every day feels the
Um,
same. You know, every
mm-hmm.
day feels nothing good's happening. It's the same stuff every day, and you've got to be the one to change it. You know, you've got to be the
Mm-hmm.
one to step up out of your comfort zone and talk about it or do something, put some action to it. You know, that's how it works.
Right. I love that. That's such a good takeaway from this. I really
Dr.
really like
Dustin in the
that.
house. That's
Dustin can teach. That, I was just kind of going to add into that. I really kind of like just still going back into like the this kind of like shame that she is carrying. I really like that it's kind of like this sort of self-inflicted type of fear that she's kind of given herself.
mm-hmm.
And maybe you know it's in response to her mother passing that kind of like made her a little bit disconnected. I mean, I don't think the movie explicitly says that, but I feel like that you can kind of go there and assume that, I guess. At least my head canon
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is.
definitely.
But and I like that how we see her grow as a person in this movie and kind of healing herself through this, and that's kind of like what helps her get get out of this rut, get out of this cycle. And
You know,
to
I was
me,
thinking, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you,
no,
but
no, no, go ahead.
what if she joined that sorority as a way to deal with her trauma, keep her mind off of her mother's death? And
Ooh.
she kind of became more vapid because of characters like Danielle, or you know, and just because if you saw that, just that one part where they're eating lunch, and that one girl, the black girl Becky, I think,
Mm-hmm.
shows up, or Becca, and she shows up with a full plate of food, and they bring her down, and then you can see it on her face that even in the first one, she's not concerned with it. She makes the comment, you know, saying, "Oh, that's a cat lady thing," but she just kind of because she's called on to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
then after that, she stops doing it, you know, and she realized, you know, that's not her. This whole sorority life is not her. She became this.
Oh yeah, she's kind of like become a mirror of them. She's just kind of like absorbed the type of energy and vibes that they were giving off, and now she's kind of just become that.
Yeah, had she been more like her mother, maybe some of this stuff wouldn't have happened. But
Yeah.
but she took after her sorority girls. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I think like the thing I was going to bring up was that we see growth of her throughout this, and the thing that stuck out to me so much was showing that she is having a real arc. Besides like the montage of her, going through her morning walk and like stopping this, like getting the people out of the sprinkler, signing the little eco-friendly petition thing, and she's helping all these people. The thing that stuck out to me the most to be like, oh wow, she is learning to be selfless is when she decides to kill herself to save Carter because
yes,
Carter died, and she goes, "Oh, if I survive this day, he's dead forever. I gotta take the leap and end my life to restart it just to bring him back."
and this is
And that
after she
was
knows all this trauma is still sticking around in her body, which was in a way it's it's really selfless. She knows.
it was in like it to me. It's like one of the most powerful points of the movie, in my opinion. It stuck out to me the most, and it really showed, again, she's being selfless. There's also this guy that she's kind of in like a funny way has grown to know him better, even though he hasn't grown to know her, day after day.
Hmm.
And so, but still, in essence, she doesn't know too much about Carter, and besides just knowing that he's a nice guy. And so I really, it was just really cool to see how much growth she had at this point in the movie. It was good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I did too. Do you think that Carter was a Mary Sue?
I don't think so. Do you?
Well, he was just kind of like that the perfect guy just fell in her lap kind of thing. He's a cute guy. He seems to be nice. He's really respectful. He's loyal right off the bat. Like everything is perfect about him.
See, it's funny that that a guy, I don't know. To me, he's just like, this movie's kind of like, hey, this is like a decent human being. He won't take advantage of a girl that's under the influence or whatever. And it's kind of just like, that should be the default, right? That you shouldn't do things like that. But now it's kind of like, for us, just because he seems extreme on one side, when it's like, really, that's how people should just be.
Oh, I agree.
Behave.
I agree. And maybe the cynical side or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I mean, plus you have these types of movies. Everybody usually has an agenda of some sort. And you know what I mean? And he just seems like he's supposed to be there as a nice guy. There's no big agenda for him. And I'm sure, the audience is supposed to go, is he one of the killer? Is he a killer? That's obviously he's thrown in there for that. And maybe his nice personality is throwing us off, that kind of thing. But at the same
that would have
time,
been such a twist if he was the killer. Oh my goodness.
yeah, but I mean, you're kind of waiting for it. I was like, I don't know. But he seems just way too perfect, and, especially like the joke at the end, and I don't want to get into that yet, but yeah. But, I just feel like, he was just a little too perfect to be there. Like he needed a little more. There needed to be something more about him, I think. And maybe there is in the sequel, but
To be fair, we're still only getting one 24-hour cycle with him, so we're not really able to have time to see where his flaws are. To be fair, I'm pretty sure he has some weird quirks, right? Like he leaves the toilet seat up, I'm sure. I don't know, but
he pisses on the rim. That's how it works.
He's a really bad tipper.
He over tips like too much. That's his character flaw. He's that nice. He is broke. Well, actually, the scariest aspect, like I said, was kind of the unknown. Like, why is this all happening? That's a scary aspect, at least for the character. In general, the whole aspect. Why is this happening? This never escaping, repeating the same day over and over is horror in itself. If you look at just Groundhog Day, that would be just Bill Murray's Groundhog Day as just a regular drama. That would be scary as crap, having to repeat the same thing over and over and not knowing how you get out of it. That in itself.
You start to think you're a god or something.
Yeah,
like how he does. Yeah,
what's going on? Like, am I in my head? Am I going nuts? That kind of thing. That's scary. But as far as like specific scenes, I would say I surprisingly I didn't really do any jump scares. It wasn't that bad. I guess maybe because it was PG-13. It wasn't so bad. And I can you really call it a horror film if there's not really any blood or guts? Like,
it's really just like
a thriller.
Yeah, it's really like more of a thriller. Yeah, it's really just the fact that she keeps dying over and over, even though we don't see the point of death. Christopher Landon was very specific in not showing that because he thought, in watching some of like the bonus features on the DVD, which I recommend everyone do for any movie, he said that that was purposeful. He didn't want to. He in his head, in this world, that split second right before death is where it resets. So she never like she got like the trauma but never like actually died, I guess. I don't know, but
well, it's kind of like when she was waking up from the dream. When you have a dream that you're about to die, you wake up right before you die. So maybe that's kind of what it was. It was almost like she was trapped in this dream thing to where she has to wake up.
I also wonder if it's like a budgetary thing, because this movie only had a budget of $4.8 million, which is something that Blumhouse does. They like, here's $5 million or less, make it happen. And this movie made over $125 million at the box office, so it was a hit. But I also wonder if it was like a kind of budgetary thing, like, it's not in the budget to show a bunch of gore effects, so it's to show right up before it, so that kind of like writes out of it. Which
that probably
is
played
clever,
a factor, yeah.
Which is clever, yeah.
Yeah, and you had to be but you know what? A lot of the times, the great slashers or the great horror movies always had to be clever with their budget, and they end up being so good, better without all the special effects or all the extra stuff. It's the imagination that's what gets you.
That's a great point. Yeah, the director and the creatives are forced into a corner and like plan their way out of it instead of just, we'll add it in post, we'll add it in post.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they're like, okay, we're going to do this, but the audience will figure this out. It's going to be in their heads, and they're going to figure. And that's the point that's scary. The audience is the one that creates the terror in their head and their mind. It's like like I said, the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. Why is this happening? That's what's scary. But it's like I was saying, as far as like scenes, I would not say like scary. I would say more creepy, but I would say like the first kill, the tunnel scene where she finds the music box with playing Happy
Right.
Birthday. That was good. It was a good setup of should she go this way, should she go this way, like
It's
where.
kind of choose your own adventure.
Yeah, that and then the whole the scene where she's locked herself in her dorm room and then somebody's turning off the TV and someone's either in the closet or in the bathroom, and
I also didn't realize how much of a clue this was to like what
yes.
was going on. It just completely glazed over me. I was such a numbskull watching this for the first time because we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Well, and I mean, and it's all these situations really, like being trapped in the car, in the police car, and knowing somebody's coming to get you. Oh man, that's just being trapped in general. Like you cannot. This whole movie is her being trapped. Trapped in the day over and over, and it's just like it's frustrating. It's scary. It's everything all together.
Yeah, the scene that like felt the most in line with like a horror, because I think we kind of talked about this movie is really fun and lots of rom-com elements, but the thing that felt more of, hey, we're going to take a little break, this stretch of the movie is going to be straight up horror, is like the garage chase scene. She escapes from the hospital, he chases her to the garage, and she eventually escapes and gets arrested but then blows up.
It's got
All
that
of
slasher chase scene in it. Yeah.
Yes, all of that was pretty, like just pound or what am I trying to say?
Pulse pounding, heart pounding.
Thank you. Yes, pulse pounding action. Yes, thank you. I couldn't. My tongue got twisted. Yeah. So all of that was because I was like, oh my goodness, like she has to like get her car, but like be quiet about it. And like the whole time, I was just like, just walk out of the garage. Like he'll just keep endlessly looking for you in the garage, or he or she, whatever you want to think about
Don't
it. But
start the car. Don't beep the car. Don't do anything. And I'm like, oh, you dumb it.
yes. And then when she like finally was able to like just get out of there, it's like, oh thank God, woo, we're fine. And yeah, my heart just sank when she got pulled over. It's like, no, she was so close.
Well, she was celebrating too early. You never celebrate. You're
That's
getting away
one
from
of
a
the
killer. Do
rules.
not celebrate.
Yeah.
That's like the new rules now. That's part of the new rules. Do not celebrate getting away from the killer. Because you're about to die then.
As I mentioned earlier, I think my favorite death was her when she hanged herself. That's such a dark sentence I just said, but that was my favorite death in this, was when she decided to end her life to save Carter for lots of reasons I talked about. The emotion behind it is like what led it to be my favorite part of this, or favorite death in her sequence of deaths. I will say one of the very cool like visually deaths that we got though was when she was hit in the head with a baseball bat, and we get that really awesome slow-mo transition of her being hit with the bat, and then it slowly transitions into her head falling on the pillow,
And then she
in
wakes
the
up.
dorm room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I love that.
That was really cool. I like that. And it's the same thing when the car exploded and she opens her eyes and you see the explosion in her eyes.
Oh yes.
Like she's waking up from that explosion of a dream. Oh yeah. Ooh. I do like some of the transitions.
Yes, yeah, the transitions were good in this, and they had to like keep it also interesting for the audience, because we don't want to feel like we're stuck in monotony with Tree, and they talked about how to do that and everything. But yeah, so I liked how like the little tiny quirks that they did for that was good.
Oh, when she got drowned and she spit up water when she woke up.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
one's
was
like,
good.
see, this is real. This is happening. You're spitting up water. This happened.
Also, imagine being Carter in that sense. Like, she just woke up and just vomited water. What happened?
Like, what the hell? Like, did you drink something I didn't see? Like, wow.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Oh, I wanted to talk about the cast a little, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Let's talk about the cast.
So I don't know Jessica Roth at all. I've never seen her in anything. I don't know if this is her first thing
Same.
at all. But she reminds me of Anna Lynn McCord. Do you know who Anna Lynn McCord is?
No, I do not. Who is she?
She was on the the reboot of 90210. She was also kind of, I think probably, have you ever seen the movie Fired Up?
Yes, I have.
She was the quote unquote bitch at the head cheerleader of the other one who did like the rah with her hands. That thing they did. She was the main girl. She reminds me, Jessica Roth reminds me so much of Anna Lynn McCord. So if you go back and look her up, you're like, there's so much, like, when they first came out with this trailer, I thought it was Anna Lynn McCord. They look similar. They had that same kind of, the characters similar to the other characters that Anna Lynn McCord plays. I don't know. But I also like the fact that they put the guy that they had playing Carter, he was from To All the Boys I Loved Before.
Oh, no way. That Netflix movie?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He played one of the boys she had fallen for that had actually ended up falling for her sister, and he lived next door. His real name is Israel Broussard.
Israel Broussard, yeah.
Yeah, and so he played the kid next door, and I was like, oh, he's a cute guy when I was watching that, and then I saw him in this. I was like, oh, I love that guy. He kind of plays the same type of character. Just that every boy the boy next door type, just, good guy, just, lighthearted, nothing really, not malicious, not, very well-intended type character, and I really like that character. Those are the two cast members I want to talk about, but I want to talk about the characters, especially the doctor.
Oh, Gregory Butler.
Yeah, just like, what the hell? Like, he was a horrible
Creep
person. I almost wanted it to be him, and I thought for the longest time it was going to be him. Because I was like, he's got to be the bad guy. He's such a sleazeball. And then you find out, yeah, he is a sleazeball. And
yeah, because his sleaziness is on like multiple layers. Besides just cheating on his wife, he's sleeping with a student, and it's just so it is all of it's just gross.
Oh, and the
bad.
fact that when she breaks it off with him, he goes, "Well, you're not going to fly by my class anymore." I'm like, so you're holding that over her now too?
yeah, he's not a good person.
I'm like, I don't think you should say that to somebody who knows what your penis looks like and can tell your wife. You know what I mean? Like, you don't say something like that. Like, you're not going to fly by my class. Like, yes, the hell I am. Or your wife finds out.
I wish that they played more into at least him being more of a red herring, because they show that he had one of those masks in his drawers, but that kind of went nowhere.
Yeah, you assumed it was him in the hospital for a while there, but then that just goes away. It just goes away. It just gets dropped. I'm like, why didn't she like mention anything? I think it might be him, but then he gets, well, that's right. He gets killed right away, right after she sees that mask.
Yeah.
So
did you happen to watch the alternate ending to this?
No, I didn't actually.
So there's an alternate ending to this. It ends with her surviving the day, kind of. So she survives the day. She's in the hospital. And it ends with Gregory's wife is her nurse. And she poisons Tree, and that's how the movie ends, with Tree dying by Gregory's wife, killing her.
Who would have thought that was a good ending?
No, that's not a good ending at all.
Who? Like, really, even the writer, come on now. Like, that's not a good ending?
It's not. I guess they're like, it would be scary because she's still stuck in the cycle, but no, it's just, no, it's not a good take home at all.
No. I bet you they might, I wonder if they're going to do any more of that in the sequel.
Ooh, I don't know yet. Dustin and I have not watched the sequel yet, which we have a cool announcement at the end of this about that. But yeah, so I'll be interested to see if that plays into that at all. Or I have a feeling it was maybe that, like, you know what, this movie is going to do really well, so just go ahead and leave room for a sequel and not end it on that weird note.
That's true. And maybe they use that scene somehow in the sequel. You don't know. Rework it somehow.
I agree with everything you said. I love the casting in this. Just one little jokey note I had was that whoever they had playing her dad, his face looked like they modeled his face to be the baby mask in this movie. It just looked so similar. He has a huge forehead.
Yeah, huge forehead, wimpy face. Like, it just didn't. I'm like, who cast this dad? This is not her dad. He's a wimpy dad. And she's not a wimpy person. I mean, look at him. You just like his stature. I'm not saying his face. I'm just everything about him just screamed, not really authoritative. I don't know. Like, he just roll. Maybe her mom must have had the, quote unquote, wore the pants. You know what I mean? Like, but that's the only thing I could think of. Like, he just doesn't seem like her dad. It just seemed like they threw a guy in there to be a dad role. And that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt weird.
Yeah. Every time they showed his face, I just kept going, God, he looks just like the baby.
Is that Elmer Fudd? What's going on here?
So for the message of this movie, I felt like that we've kind of gotten into this, but I really felt like that this was a story about learning to respect yourself and others, and learning to be selfless, and learning from mistakes in general is kind of like the take home from this, is what I was getting.
Yeah, I get that. I agree with that. I think the other takeaway is pay attention. Pay attention to how you treat others and how other people take the way you treat them. Because if you're not paying attention, you can see it on their face. If you said something you might have thought was fine, but it comes off, crappy to them. You can see it. Like, I'm sorry, what did I do? Did I say something wrong? Just make sure they know you care.
Be self-aware.
Be self-aware of everything around you. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being quote unquote, I hate saying OCD, but you know what I mean? Like, because that's a real disorder. But
It's kind of like, like the Michael Scott syndrome, just like read the room, dude. Like,
yes, read the room. Like, so, okay, can we get into the final part of the movie as far as like,
please.
so it's very obvious to me the reason why I was like, from the beginning, I had a feeling that it was going to be her roommate.
Okay.
Because she was being the only one who had acknowledged her birthday right off the bat. And she threw it away. Flat out. I was like, oh, that would piss me off. You know what I mean? Like, is that good enough to kill somebody? I don't know. And then, but you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that would tick me off. That might be motive right there. And then it seems like,
maybe spit my coffee.
but like she just takes the cake, cupcake, blows out the candle, throws it away, and then another time she sets it down. She just doesn't acknowledge this girl. But the thing that made me realize that it was her was when she was trapped in the cop car and she dropped that birthday candle to light the gas, and I went, "It's the roommate right there." Birthday candle.
So stupid. I am so stupid. When that happened, that was not my thought. My thought was like, "Oh, this is just birthday themed to the max. Like everything is birthday theme. Is this not that's because it was taking the literal candle from the cupcake that she wouldn't eat."
But it was a different colored candle too, which was funny because I looked when they went back to that scene. It was a completely different candle. One of them was striped and one of them was just solid red. But I just knew from the cupcake, and I went, it's got to be her. It's the damn candle. She's the only one who had a candle in this whole damn movie. It's got to be her.
Do you also think that I want to talk about like the cover of the Blu-ray? It's a cake. I also felt like it was like a kind of like an Easter egg of what's going on in this movie because it's the cupcake that was poisoned and it's a cake that is the cover of this. I felt like that was like an Easter egg for that.
Yeah, it totally was. And. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. How they do. They love it when they do that with movies, and you're like, it's right there in your face. It told you right there from the beginning. Hint, hint, hint. I will say though, like I side with Tree on this when she goes, "Really? Over a guy?" Because for those of you who don't know, who haven't watched the movie, I know I'm spoiling this for you, but her roommate ends up being the person setting her up. She tries to poison the cupcake, so Tree keeps throwing the cupcake away. So the roommate has to figure out another way to kill her. So there's this convict that's being held at the hospital. She helps this convict escape and puts him in Tree's path every time. So she gets killed over and over.
Oh, see, that was not my reading of it. My reading was that her roommate Lori was trying to kill her with the cupcake, but Tree threw it away every time. So her backup plan was that Lori dressed up as the baby and killed her, but she also let that lunatic loose with the same costume so everybody would think it was him that killed her. Not that she was leading him. There were some times where they crossed paths, but sometimes it was Lori in the costume. Because they did show a flashback of Lori taking the mask off when she killed a Tree at the fountain during the montage.
True. Yeah.
So that was my reading of it.
That's true. And, at the same time, though, I had to think, okay, so who was in the room? That one scene where she had locked the door, put the dresser in front of it, nailed the window shut. The roommate had left at that point. How did somebody get in that room? That's what I want to know.
See, I think it's her roommate, Lori, because if I remember correctly, her roommate told her, because Tree's telling Lori that like she doesn't feel safe, she wants to stay home, and she said, "Yeah, you should just stay home for the night." And then she pretends to leave, but stays in the bathroom, knowing that she's going to barricade herself in the room.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yes.
Either way, though, even if she didn't do it, she probably could have somehow gotten that guy in, but he probably would have killed her. So. No, he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have gone. She wouldn't be like, "Hey, don't kill me. I've got other people you can kill. Just wear this mask." She didn't talk to him and have it out.
Smokes and mirrors, man. Just look over here at this dude, and I'm going to go do
shiny
my
thing over here.
It's also like It's also like another fun kind of like Scream reference too. Is that like there's two killers, but which one is it?
Who's doing what when? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I watched. I gotta be honest, I didn't watch the whole interview, but just because I was trying to learn how to pronounce everyone's names. But I watched an interview with Jessica Roth, and she described this movie as a rom-com crossed with Scream. And it's specifically Scream. And I really got that with some of the stuff that we talked about, and also just the fact that it could have been two killers at some point, depending which version of Tree you got.
Yeah, that's true, especially when multiple people were getting killed,
Mm-hmm.
And, that kind of leads me to question, like, so, all right, we figured out who the killer was in this, and then it stops the cycle, right?
Yeah.
How are we starting up with part 2? That's the part I'm like, how is this getting set up? I saw the trailer for part 2, and it looks like it starts off where it left off.
Mm-hmm.
It picks up right where it left off, but
I'm excited to see part 2.
And I'm hoping that it actually maybe explains why she's reliving the same day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope so too. I'll be okay. I'll be okay if we don't get an answer to that. I would like one, but I'll be okay if we don't.
Well, I want the answer because
I want answers, damn it.
I want answers, but there's a reason. Because think about it. In Groundhog Day, the reason why he's waking up every day. He's got a, like I said, redemption storyline. He's got to change his life. In this one, she changes and makes herself nice, and then she starts the day over again. And it just keeps going. And it isn't until she figures out who the killer is that her day stops restarting. So what was the point of that? Who put her under this? You know what I mean? Like, why does she need to keep seeing it? Because she's not like even at the beginning, it would be different if she was like the typical final girl, the meek girl and stuff who keeps waking up and has to like rise to the occasion. Because that would be like, okay, the mystical universe takes sympathy on this meek girl and wants her to do better, But why are we doing this with this vapid snob, Why would the universe do that to her? So there's got to be something behind it. And I'm thinking that's going to happen in part 2, that we find that out in part 2. I hope so.
Thank you, Dustin, so much for coming on. Everybody, please go follow Dustin. Is your Instagram handle Dustin Can Read?
Yeah, Dustin Can Read on Instagram or on Twitter, Dustin_Holden, Holden. And you can actually reach out to me at dustincanreadpod@gmail.com. And you can find Dustin Can Read on pretty much any pod service.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dustin. Everybody, please go follow him, and be sure to follow me on Instagram at Brucker Horror. That's kind of my landing page for everything, where I like to put fun posts, episode posts, and on those episode posts, you can continue the dialogue with us and comment in those below. Let us know your thoughts. Which tree kill was your favorite from this? And I'd also like to announce that we are going to be covering Happy Death Day to You, but we're going to be doing it in a very different way. Dustin and I, we're going to be doing a commentary track for Happy Death Day to You. We will be watching the movie and commentating over it, and that track will become available for y'all, so y'all can watch the movie with us. I am super excited to do that.
Oh, I am too. Oh man,
I'm gonna have so much fun.
I might probably have to get a little inebriated when I watch it the first time, so we can do this commentary, so I can come up with some really good, funny things to say.
Yes. Yes, I might try to come up with a couple of drinking rules for games for everybody, but I'm really looking forward to do our commentary track for Happy Death Day to You. So be sure to look out for that release as well.
Thank you so much for having me on, Brucker.
Thank you so much, Dustin, and thank you, Chelley, for requesting this movie. If you have a request, hit me up on Instagram or send me a request via email at bruckerhorror@gmail.com, and I will be sure to shout you out during those episodes. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time with Dustin when we do our commentary track for Happy Death Day to You.
Bye.
Bye.